The night was still, the air thick with summer humidity, as a group of friends gathered around a bonfire on the shore of Miller's Point. The stories they told were meant to be nothing more than summer campfire tales, meant to frighten and amuse in equal measure. Little did they know that one of these tales would become all too real. As the flames crackled and the scent of roasting marshmallows filled the air, Jake, the ringleader of the group, decided it was time for a story to send shivers down their spines. "All right, listen up, everyone," Jake said, leaning in closer to the fire. "I've got a story that'll make your skin crawl. It's about the hook-handed man." The group shifted closer, their faces illuminated by the warm, flickering light of the fire. Jake continued, "Legend has it that a long time ago, there was a man with a hook for a hand who terrorized young couples parked out here at Miller's Point. He was a deranged killer, and his hook was his weapon of choice." The fire crackled, casting eerie shadows on the faces of the listeners. "One summer night," Jake continued, "a young couple was parked out here, just like us. They were lost in each other's arms when they heard a news bulletin on the car radio. The announcer warned of an escaped mental patient with a hook for a hand who was last seen in this very area." The group glanced around nervously, the darkness beyond the firelight seemingly impenetrable. "The girl got scared," Jake said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "She insisted they leave, but her boyfriend assured her it was just a story. They didn't need to worry. They locked the car doors and continued kissing." Jake paused for effect, the tension in the air palpable. "But as the night went on," Jake continued, "they heard a strange scratching sound on the car door. The girl was paralyzed with fear, but the boy, wanting to protect her, started the engine and floored it." The fire crackled louder as if in agreement. "When they got home," Jake said, "they found a bloody hook hanging from the car door handle." The group gasped and let out nervous laughter, convincing themselves it was all just a story. They couldn't have known that the hook-handed man would soon become a part of their own horrifying tale. As the night wore on, some of the group left, but a core remained, eager to prove their bravery. They shared more stories, with the laughter and camaraderie growing stronger. As the fire dwindled, Jake decided it was time to make the night truly memorable. "Let's do something crazy," he suggested. "Let's summon the hook-handed man." The group's collective enthusiasm was contagious, and they agreed. They gathered around the fire, forming a circle. Jake outlined the plan. "We're going to turn off all the lights and sit in darkness. Then we'll chant, 'Hook-handed man,' 3 times. If nothing happens, we'll know it's all just a story." The group extinguished the fire and sat in pitch-black darkness. The air was thick with tension as they began to chant, "Hook-handed man, hook-handed man, hook-handed man." The silence that followed seemed endless, and the group began to giggle nervously. Then they heard it, a distant scratching sound, like claws against metal. Panic set in, and they fumbled for their flashlights and car keys. As they made their way back to the cars, their flashlights revealed deep scratches on the doors of their vehicles. They were convinced it was just a prank by one of their friends, but no one would confess. Fear had gripped them all. They decided to leave Miller's Point and put the terrifying events behind them. As the group dispersed, each in their own car, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. In the darkness, they could hear the distant sound of scraping metal and the echoing laughter of the hook-handed man. Weeks passed, and the events at Miller's Point were dismissed as a prank, a collective hysteria fueled by the power of storytelling. However, the memory lingered in the back of their minds, a creeping unease that something had been awakened that night. One evening, Jake received a call from his friend Tom, who had been at Miller's Point that fateful night. His voice was quivering as he recounted a chilling experience. He claimed that while he was alone in his car, he saw a shadowy figure with a hook for a hand standing just outside his window. As Tom recounted the story, Jake could hear the fear in his friend's voice. He could feel it too, a sense that the hook-handed man had not been just a story, but a malevolent force that had become all too real. Jake, now determined to face the fear head-on, convinced Tom to meet him at Miller's Point. They needed to confront whatever had been unleashed that night and put an end to it. As they arrived at the deserted spot, the moonlight cast long shadows across the landscape. The air was thick with tension, and the sound of their footsteps seemed unnaturally loud. They moved cautiously, their flashlights sweeping the area, looking for any sign of the hook-handed man. Their search led them to the very spot where they had told the stories, around the now cold fire pit. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he realized that the fire had been extinguished not by the passage of time, but by an ominous handprint on the ash-covered stones. With trepidation, they began to chant, "Hook-handed man, hook-handed man, hook-handed man." A strange scratching sound filled the air, and the shadows seemed to come to life. In the distance, they saw a figure, a silhouette with a hook for a hand, moving toward them. Fear gripped them, but they stood their ground. Jake shouted, "Who are you? What do you want?" The figure continued to advance, the hook glinting ominously in the moonlight. Tom, his voice quivering, said, "We're sorry if we awakened you. We didn't mean any harm. Please, just leave us alone." As the figure drew closer, they could see the malevolent gleam in its hollow eyes. It spoke in a low, gravelly voice. "You shouldn't have awakened me. I was at peace until your chant called me back from the darkness." With each step, the hook-handed man seemed to become more substantial, more real. He reached out with his hook, and the two friends closed their eyes, ready for the end. But then, a voice cut through the darkness. "Stop!" They opened their eyes to see another figure, a woman in white, standing between them and the hook-handed man. She held a burning torch, its flames warding off the malevolent spirit. "Leave this place, you cursed soul," she commanded. "You have no power here." The hook-handed man hissed, recoiling from the flames of the torch. He slowly faded into the shadows, his presence dissipating like a bad dream. The woman turned to Jake and Tom. "You have been fortunate this night, but remember this lesson. Some legends are best left undisturbed. Now go, and never return to this place." As they left Miller's Point, their hearts still pounding with fear, they couldn't help but think of the woman in white and her torch, a guardian of the darkness. They had learned a valuable lesson that night. Some stories had the power to become real, and some legends were better left alone. The legend of the hook-handed man would continue to be whispered around campfires, a warning of the darkness that could be awakened by a simple chant. And for Jake and Tom, the memory of that night at Miller's Point would be a constant reminder of the ominous power that legends could hold.